Okay, well, let's get started. Everybody? Thanks. Okay, good. So this is a session, term faculty governance and service. Um, what I wanted to do first off is start, put up here, why did you come to this session? I'm kind of curious. One of the things I've always heard is, thought from my classroom days is, what's on the audience's mind. So I know a lot of you all, but some I don't. You can get some, what was on your mind when you signed up for this session? Yes.
I would like to be involved in service in my department.
Which department are you in?
Psychology.
Okay.
I would like to know what
Excellent. No, perfect. Thank you. What else? Yes.
I want to thank you for the work you've done up to this point to find out what you learned.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that's certainly what we'll do. Thank you very much. Thank you. What else? Let's get 2 or 3 others. Yes.
a little bit about career development. I may say really good as I am, but I may develop into something else also.
Okay. Career development. I agree. I mean, take just a second. I mean, I think about as term faculty, there's a sort of a feeling like you're just sent here for 9 months or whatever, and then you teach. But if I think about what our role is to try to foster inclusion and career development, right? So yeah, great. What else? Someone else had a hand back here. Yes. Are you term faculty, or are you anything more specific you want to learn about term faculty? Tell me anything. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Okay. So, yes, please. All right. Which unit are you in? Okay, so you're an SAS, and so TF for term faculty across college, across university. Anything about governance? On your mind, would like to hear what we have to say, perhaps? Okay, all right, fair enough. So let me give you first a little bit of background on myself and the committee, and then we'll get into the presentation. I'm in, I guess it's my 7th year here at American University. I'd say my first 3 years, I just sat in my office and taught and worked on teaching, I guess, and probably where else I was going to go. I was pretty well explicitly said. I was wondering if my publisher or anyone was going to show up because they signed up, but he's not here, so I can say whatever I want. I was pretty well told, this is not really a career for you, so you do what you want, but, that was it. That was a pretty short conversation. I went to a lunch with Dean Starr, and I saw a lot of people doing some pretty neat special things as term faculty. That was pretty motivating, and I went to a term faculty session here at Ferren. Lacey and Glenn, and I think UJ and a few others were there, and I thought, wow, there's a lot of people doing a lot of impressive things. How can I do more? The problem is information. Where do you get the information? Where do you get the knowledge? I went into my department chairs. I said, I want to do more here. So that's great. Yeah, we'd love to have you. Always things to do. Nothing. Nothing happened. But when I joined the term faculty committee, I started to hear about things, do things, and then I sort of raised my hand, as really nobody else would. Do you want to become the vice chair or whatever? And suddenly I got put on the Dean's Advisory Committee, and we started doing things there. Some subcommittees from the Senate opened up. I was on the Faculty Code of Conduct Committee over the summer, which is more interesting than it sounds. I'm on the Senate subcommittee for grade inflation. And I'm also looking for what's next after this. I'm looking for what would be my next move. And also as we've talked before, I don't want to just fill time. I want to do something that's useful and helpful for myself and for the university too. So as a plug, in February we're going to do a workshop on service and governance. So this is sort of almost like a tease, just sort of get us started. Okay. We did a survey in 2014. This is Chris Tudge. This is Letty. Chris Tudge was our chair last year. Senior who's in the back here was our chair the year before. And we did a survey of all term faculty. Can you hit the down button for me, Chris? Handy button. Down. Yeah. Okay. So we did a survey of all term faculty in the college. So unfortunately, we don't have that much interaction between the term faculty committees, although I think that would be something we ought to try to aspire to. And so just keep that in mind. So we only had the emails of college term faculty. So we sent an email out to participate in the survey. I think it was 154 term faculty that we sent it to, what 105 responded. So okay, 68%, 2/3, that's fine. So we had about, I don't know, 30 or so questions. Survey design is always a little tricky. We had a sort of an idea what we wanted in our mind, and then once you get the responses, you said, gee, why didn't we ask them this? Why didn't we ask them that? But at the end of the day, there were sort of 4 objectives here. What role do term faculty have in departmental governance? And it's kind of interesting. I think somewhat unbeknownst to us, we're part of Dean Starr's initiative of updating the department bylaws on governance. So governance is a big hot button for Dean Starr. I know he had a forum just on governance, not necessarily just term faculty, but a lot of department bylaws are out of date, and they have some strange things in them. I know ours does. I'm in economics, and so what is the role of term faculty in governance? Certainly is something that came up. So it says here, what's the role in governance? How much service are term faculty engaged in? So at some level, we want to be engaged in a lot, but we also don't want to do, the lowest man on the rung, the bottom of the barrel service too. We want to do meaningful, valuable service, right? Are term faculty informed of their service options? So we actually, sort of the truth be told, we teased these questions later. We didn't have all these brilliant ideas to start with. We just said, we'll just survey term faculty. Afterwards, we said, what do we get? Well, these are sort of the questions that we were seem to be after. But, it'd be nice if we just had, here's your list of things you could go do. And maybe it's what's appropriate by how many years of service, or years in the college year, your 3rd year, your 5th year. Is it department service? Is it university service? What are your options? That'd be nice. And do term faculty feel their service is valued and recognized? Okay, so 4 questions, obviously. Some of them are very objective, yes, no. Others are a little more subjective, just, trying to get their feel. All right, delineated responses by length of contract and years of experience. So we are preparing a report. The report is sitting on Dean Starr or in his email or something like that, waiting for a little bit of blessing or non-blessing. And the respondents were well dispersed among departments as well as by contract type. So certainly you're going to get a slightly different view of these things, whether you've been here for 1 year or you've been here multi-year, or if you're on a single year contract or a multi-year contract, if you've been here just 1 or 2 years, or you've been here many, many years. Okay, so go ahead and hit the next. Okay, so those 4 questions, right? So this is actually a very brief PowerPoint slideshow. You've been here for a long time today. Do term faculty have a role in departmental governance? And it's not binary yes or no. It's not easy to just, but all in all, our assessment is limited, and also it varies between colleges, but it varies by department. It varies dramatically by department. Someone like college writing, maybe world languages, a fair amount. Others like mine, very limited. So trying to tease that out. Overall, as I said here, term faculty have inconsistent, limited opportunities to participate in departmental governance. Of course, we have to define what's governance, what's service versus what's governance. Right, so we have to make that distinction. They're generally excluded from decisions relating to hiring, reappointment, and promotion. So there's more to, I just had to put this on a PowerPoint slide. There's more to this in the findings that we wrote up. We wrote, are you allowed to serve? Do you even know you yes or no? That was another thing. Do you know? So as you can see here, they're allowed to serve or not allowed. I was trying to think about, okay, where do I fit on this? I said, all right, am I not allowed to serve on a hiring committee? And of course, it's hard to distinguish between allowed to and do you. But if I went through here on a hiring committee, no. I don't think I'm allowed to. Nobody asked. Rank and tenure, no. We have a star there because, and Dean Starr maybe put this in there, not on this, but on the report, that by laws, we're not allowed to serve on tenure track, tenure decisions, any of that. So he said it's be a little misleading. The 17% is probably just one or two departments where they're all term faculty. Are we on merit review? No, I've not been on merit review. Vote on bylaws? Not really. Vote on general issues? Well, that's so vague. Yeah, I guess if somebody asked me, you want the coffee pot over here or here, I got the vote. Curriculum? Nah, I haven't really. So wow, not much. But okay, so let's go on. Again, it was defining the question was hard here. All right, so to my little interaction here, it says here, take 3 minutes, 2 minutes. I'll put a little stopwatch on you. And introduce yourself to someone. It'd be nice if someone you don't know, and discuss what your role is specifically in departmental governance. Try to distinguish between that and service. Go.
Let's go. First 2 years, nothing.
First 2 years, nothing?
Nothing. Not because I was busy teaching or
Yeah.
creating new classes, so I was very busy with that.
Yeah.
And there was nothing asked of me except to be a citizen. So I had to go to department meetings, smile.
Yes.
Just kidding. But then, yeah, a little bit. I sort of designed a new, no, redesigned an internship program. That it was for myself. I mean, I did it. I maneuvered everything.
Yes.
Nobody asked anything. So I think that's governance in a way.
Yes. So when did they ask you? Did they ever ask you to do
No,
anything?
no. In governance, no.
No.
But I participated because I wanted myself to participate in something, but no, not necessarily.
That's interesting.
No.
I wasn't involved much in governance the first 5 years I was here. I was on 1-year contracts for 5 years, and I was involved in activities in the department, but not necessarily governance.
Governance, yeah.
Probably the most engaged I got was I was asked to be on a couple of search committees.
But for term faculty.
No, for tenure faculty.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I actually hired my colleagues.
Isn't it sad?
Which is kind of interesting. I think twice in 5 years I was
No
asked to be
kidding.
on that.
That is very strange.
Because we had such a small department then, and there was literally a lack of bodies. So it's like you're a warm body,
Yeah.
come and sit on the committee. So and it wasn't
Could you
until
vote? Or just
it wasn't necessarily a voting issue. On the committee, our opinions were solicited. It never came down to hands up, let's vote. But because I was on the committee, I had an influence
you
on
had input, yeah.
on what was being said. But ultimately, I found out, we've hired so-and-so. Oh, that's very nice, sort of thing. But I didn't have to yes, no, these particular people. So I can't actually say it was voting, but I was consulted on my opinions
Sure.
on who should be hired. So yeah. So I guess
That's interesting, yeah.
that is governance.
Never happened to me for term faculty or anything, no. So no.
And not even now.
No.
Wow.
No.
And
Yeah.
you have lots of term faculty. How many term faculty? do you
Yeah, I have the statistics here. We
Yeah.
have 15.
15,
No, 28.
28 of?
15 tenure and
Of-
25 adjuncts.
Okay, so if we leave the adjuncts out, that's 30, 43, so 28. That's nearly 3/4 of the faculty,
Yes.
and they're not involved in those decisions.
No.
And do you know if
And
any?
I get other term faculty are involved in
Yeah.
these issues, but not myself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
probably other people are. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
think
still, it's a minority, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, in that sense, but nothing else. Yeah, being in other committees outside other departments, but
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. So what about your governance outside of your department? Have you been involved in governance outside, or
And
is
when
it
you say
service
when-
without governance?
I think it's more service than governance
Yeah.
because and I don't know if that qualifies as governance because I am part of the advisory committee to.
Okay,
approve or
let's
disapprove
reconvene.
of
Let's
syllabi,
reconvene, and I'm going to try to get
of
3 or
anything
4
to
different
component. Is that
people
governance?
to just share what they have. Anybody here? Can you guys maybe? I don't know. Or back? Yes, please. Go ahead. Sure,
Yes,
sure.
yes.
You were volunteered.
You've been volunteered.
What was the question again?
What is your role? Now, I'm sorry. Are you term faculty?
I am.
Okay. Which department?
Computer science.
Okay. So what is your role in if you want to share, you can pass, obviously, in department government? Governance.
I have a voice on curriculum issues.
Okay. Great. Thank you. What else? Yeah?
In terms of
everything. Is that new? No, that you have to have it, you're allowed in everything? Seven, 3 term. So there's 7 in the department, 3 are term. Okay. I also know you. Okay. All right, great. Yes. Chemistry. Ah, so the question is, what is governance? Have you voted? There's never been anything, nothing's been put up to vote. Well, the question though is, right, just a question whether they're in some other place. Decisions are made some other place. Right, okay. That's kind of interesting, so, or nothing. Yes. Okay. Service. By administrator, okay, service, okay, interesting.
So Ralph, you,
What were you gonna say?
I was going to say, you have to remember that all governance is service, but not all service is governance, which is one of the mantras we use. So I think all of us do service, but what is governance, what is meaningful governance and meaningful service versus service? We have to remember that.
Yeah, good. No, I mean, I thought rather than just run through the PowerPoint of our findings, I wanted to actually hear from the audience because I have a certain view, but what we do in our department or a few other departments, it seems very different than your department so far. And so we're going to get to service real soon. Thank you. Yeah.
What percentage of courses are taught by regular faculty, term faculty?
So we want to change it to full-time faculty versus adjuncts, and within full-time term faculty versus tenure faculty. All right, that's how it should be phrased.
No.
We're regular faculty.
Right. Term, tenure type faculty.
Okay. Within the college or the university? I don't know.
I don't actually have those figures. I don't know.
I'm going to say, and maybe if anybody wants to that something like 40% are taught by term, 40% by tenure, and 20% by adjuncts. Anybody has anything different? And I don't know if it's, how, we have those numbers, at least for the college. Yeah, we have that in for the college. I don't know if we have it for the university. But I think that's within a few percentage points.
Yeah, well, one thing to remember in that, there's been a big push to reduce adjunct. I think it was all part of the middle states review we had the time before last, was to reduce adjunct, and that's why there's been an increase in term faculty employment. So I think those figures may have changed to more term and tenure and a lot less adjunct than they used to be, because I think there was some criticism directed at the institution for the amount of adjunct teaching that was being done. But I really don't know the figures on that right now.
Okay. Anything else? Yes. Okay.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So R&T for term faculty. Yeah. Right, and that's proper. So I mean, I'm hearing a lot of positive that people are not really dissatisfied with their role in governance. They feel like there's a lot of shared governance. Right? don't know their options.
Like,
Right. Right.
but we never vote, because we never vote, there are no votes, we never just anarchy.
Well, there's a big difference. There's a big difference between departments that are majority term faculty or not.
So, certain faculty are not there, for sure, but then for the superintendent committee, it's going to be a program, running program, so that's
Right.
going to go all to faculty. So, but then we don't usually return general, when we need to go for the bylaws or documenting, that we go to bylaws.
Okay.
And sometimes we can very,
But my sense is from the 105 respondents that we got, a lot of the people saying they aren't involved in governance, that they would be, are not people that are in the room. That's my sense. Because that's what the findings were showing. So people here in the room feel like they largely are fine with governance. All right, let's go on to service.
Sorry. Sat down on the job.
All right. Yeah, yeah.
I would consider changing curriculum to be governance, because that's an important part of the institution. I would also consider changing bylaws that influence all faculty to be governance. But not every decision you make within a department is governance. It doesn't influence everybody. I said no because it's very difficult to define.
Couldn't we say it's something that it's the rules, processes, procedures in which the department is run, by which the department's run?
Yeah, that would be useful. So
Yeah.
merit and rank and tenure and curriculum and bylaws, I would definitely put into a governance category. Yeah, if there is one, executive committee decisions.
How
Advisory
decision?
committees for, that's governance.
As long as the advisory committees change,
Mhm.
bylaws,
Things,
rules,
yes.
governance, etc. Some advisory committees produce a lot of hot air and nothing actually happens out of them. So
But still.
I'm not sure if that's actually
A lot of it's how decisions are made. I mean, some of it's just by the chair, but sometimes it's. All right. So number two, are term faculty engaged in service? And I think largely yes, or almost completely yes. And this is going to vary depending on how long you've been here as well. You can think of service both at the department and at the college level. So the question was sort of how to tease out what kind of service. Certainly mentoring, promotion, The question was directing programs, chairing committees, what we might call meaningful service. But this was done a year or two ago. We found 36 and 38% were involved in directing programs and chairing committees. I guess we'd probably like that to be higher. I think this box is probably the intriguing thing. There appears to be a trend toward increasing the service roles of term faculty. I know we saw that. I've seen that in our department a fair bit. Given this trend, it's important to integrate term faculty to a greater extent in departmental communication and governance. So it seems like we're running even though it says only 36 or 38%, that we're running programs, being asked to run programs, being directed to run programs to a greater extent. Maybe though not really being involved in why we're asked to do it, or would you like to? I'm not sure you're asked or you're directed to do it, but not involved in the decision of whether to do that or not. Perhaps to give tenure line people more time for research or what have you. So it's just an interesting trend. I don't know if thoughts. Yeah. there's great
Right.
differences in
And
departments.
there's some push for some departments to do the 20% of service that we're required to do, and some other departments just do the other. But it's there, supposedly.
Just to be it seems like a search might choose whether you want to use some of those bullets. A lot of the departments will take 20 actions, 5 and then it takes something like so this is just a slightly changed. 2 years?
Yeah, 3 years maximum, and it was a choice on.
First, it depends what track you're on. If you're on that associate assistant track versus lecturer track. So, assuming most are on the lecturer track, yeah, perhaps there's a certain percent for service. But then, how's that measured? Right, that's the tough thing. How's that measured? But again, I found that this trend, and the question is, I would assume, is it positive or not? Is it a good thing? But as I said, to a great extent, given this trend, it's important to integrate term faculty to a greater extent in department communication and governance. So basically, if you're being asked to direct a program, how did this come about? Why is this, et cetera, versus here you go. Because again, anecdotally, that's what we've sort of found. People are being asked to do this, and they're not sure, should we take, why this is good for them, et cetera, et cetera. So it says here that administration should consider methods to reward term faculty for valuable service. In our report, which is sitting with the dean, we've got some discussions on some ideas, some programs on how to do that. And we're planning to roll out I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, a workshop so an actual integrated workshop in February to talk about service, somewhat governance, reward structures, et cetera, to see what can be done. Because in the results we got back from the survey, there was a lot of what's a synonym for complaining? A lot of complaining, a lot of complaints, I guess, with regard to service, and so trying to figure out how to improve people's well-being and doing service and feeling good about it. So go to the next slide. All right. So our term faculty informed. So number 3, again, the 4 items we have. Our term faculty informed of their service options. Again, it's not necessarily binary yes or no, but it's found often no. We surveyed term faculty related to a large number of service activities. There may be 8 or 10 different service activities. More like about 12 or 15 different service activities. It was often unclear whether they could, for example, direct programs, chair committees. So we had 3 boxes: allowed to, not allowed to, or don't know. And the don't know was very, very high. So direct programs or chair committees, services presumed of great value. Just a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. That's my sense. Maybe others feel like they've got a whole litany of options, and let me just check this box. And I know the world doesn't work that nicely, but something that'd be good to know. Next year I'd like to do this, or next year I'd like to do this. A lot of people just don't know. There's just a whole lot of lack of clarity. All right, so it's gone. And then lastly, and again, do term faculty feel their service is valued or recognized? Valued and recognized. So here's what we basically came out with: that valued at the department level, but not at the college level. I talked to the team about this, and they said, it's surprising, of course, he's at the college level. So I think this. It said likely due to the limited visibility of service work at the university level. So you're, I don't know, doing what we're doing, or doing something that's not where your colleagues are sitting in the department. Just as a feeling like people don't know that you're doing this, and maybe has limited value to your colleagues. Term faculty generally do not perceive their service to be recognized at the department or college level. So this was a lot of the feedback we got from the survey, that they just don't feel recognized. Only 37% agreed their service was recognized at the department level. Again, didn't really know what does it mean to be recognized. It's just a binary yes or no, and the number drops to 17% at the college level. So just something to think about. Again, we're trying to think about programs, reward structures, how to make it that people feel better about the service that they're doing. Are you overburdened with the service are you doing? Are you not doing enough and you'd like to do more? So, same spirit, if you could take 3 minutes, introduce yourself to somebody you haven't talked to. By the way, introduce this person you haven't talked to and discuss the most important service you have done over the last academic year, or something you want to do. Go.
All right.
Me again?
Yes.
You've already
I
talked to
have-
me
I
though,
have
Ludi.
no
Come on.
option. I have no
You have no options? So what have you done?
This is the most important service
This is
I've done.
good. That's good to hear.
You know, in a larger scale. And the second was the advisory committee on service learning curriculum. Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes, because it affects the whole university.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is the most fun.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear
That's
that.
because of the
Yeah.
parties.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
right.
No, this is the most fun.
Well, we
so
don't know
far.
yet, Ralph. We'll
Yeah.
find out on Sunday, all right?
Yeah.
Just bought some beer for the party.
Yes. But you have done quite a lot. So.
I have probably done too much. Now, what I consider to be the most valuable, that's quite interesting. I think the work I did on the restructuring the SETs
You did.
was the hardest and the most complicated and the most stressful because I was dealing with the provost and deans and that sort of thing. But I think at the end, I feel really pleased. I think we achieved change, and I think we got what we wanted against the wishes of other people.
yeah.
So far, things are going okay.
Smoothly, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
okay,
so
that's good, that's good.
even though it was difficult, stressful, a year and a half's worth of work, I feel very comfortable that I was involved in that. I feel very pleased that we're
And
probably
because it affects everything. I
Yeah.
mean, this is something that really.
this spring,
Yeah.
everybody will be doing electronic SCTs
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Okay.
coming this spring.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a small pilot run. I was part of a small pilot of
Be it
50
Blackboard?
faculty.
To do it electronically, how did the
yeah.
students respond? Quick,
Uh,
or how
it
did it happen?
depends on. I deliberately didn't do them in class because I wanted to see what change it made to participation, and I only had 41% participation. That's the biggest problem when you go online. But we're advocating a system where you physically do it in class like you do paper, but everyone does it electronically. So you warn the students.
To bring their computers?
Yes, on Friday we're going to do the SCTs. Bring your phone, bring your computer, bring your tablet,
Whatever it
bring
is.
something to do your electronic SCTs, and you devote the time like you would for paper. And
Yeah,
you would
okay.
say, and you have to leave the room. You're supposed to leave the room like you're supposed to. Yeah, it's online. Show them how to get to it on Blackboard or whatever. This is where it is. Do it now. I'll be outside. I'm coming back in 15
And
minutes.
nobody has to sign for it. Nobody has to turn it in.
No, nothing like
They
that.
just submit and that's it.
Correct, correct. Now I deliberately didn't do that in my large Gen Ed class because I wanted to see
How much?
how many people would do it if they weren't prompted that way. And I got 41% compared to probably 95% when I would do it by paper in
So
class.
how does it affect you in your?
As far as I could see from the evaluations, they were similar. Because the people who want to do it,
They wanted to. They mean they wanted
well, you
to.
have the same range. You get the good people and you get the people who are so pissed
worst,
off that
yeah.
they want it. So I think you get the same range. The problem is it's not representative if it's 41%.
Yes. But
So
yeah.
as far as I can see, my numbers didn't change very much. I had to do an exact comparison because I've taught this class for 10 years now, and I need to go in and put those figures next to all the other figures and see if they're down a little, up a little, or about the same. They looked about the same to me. There was no gross change in my overall standing, but only 41% of the people were actually telling me that, giving me that grade, versus nearly 100% that would have been done the semester before.
No, but my question is on top of that is how does it affect for your contract or anything if it's only 41% of the students who answer
Well,
this?
the
So how
pilot,
does- yeah.
pilot didn't have any limitations set on
Okay,
it.
okay.
What we want to do when we run it for everybody is we're going to set a limit of say 80%.
At least.
At
yes.
least. Once you hit that, then you don't need any more. And what we would do, you would open it up and say it will close after 80,
8 p.m.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever.
Yes.
and if you don't get to 80%, you offer it again, and you email the students again and say, please complete until the end of the semester. If you don't get 80%, there's nothing you can do about it. But once you've got over 80%, you don't have to keep pestering the class for
Okay.
it. That's what WCL, College of Law, WCL does, and that's the model we adopted. Would be an
Does it work
80%
there?
completion.
Yeah, okay.
It would be acceptable.
Okay.
If you've got 100%, great. But if you've got less, you would keep offering that. But if your students just don't want to do it,
You cannot. How can you force somebody?
some institutions force them. they
get your
don't
grade, you
give
don't get
them
your
their
grade.
grades until they do it. But then you have a whole lot of pissed off people
Right.
filling out your evaluation. So we weighed that. There's carrots and there's sticks, right? Some people say if you do your evaluations, you get to enroll earlier. So there's a carrot, and there's other people who say if you don't do evaluations, you don't get your grades. That's a stick. So we looked at them and we thought we don't want to go.
Okay, let's get back. Let's reconvene quickly.
That's paper too.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely.
I like it.
Definitely. It costs
So-
$30,000 a year.
I just want to write up about three or four different service. I mean, part of this I think is to get some ideas of service that you might want to do, what other people are doing. I can get some volunteers and just service some service that you've done the last year that you want to share. Yes. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be great. The communications diversity, so it's a department diversity kit.
It's a college.
Right. Okay. Within the School of Communications? Okay. Sure. How did you get on that committee? Yeah. Okay. In School of Communications? Who else? Any other? Senate faculty? How's your experience in the Senate faculty? But why would you suggest more just to influence? Excellent. And you had to run to get it. Fair enough. All right. All right. Who else? Let's get two or three. Yeah.
Well, we're on this, on the new, we just did a first generation committee.
First generation for first gen.
Generation college student graduates. And we're happy to members are all first generation college graduates. And that's good. It's really
So it's a university committee of CAS committee
Is it part of the RISE project?
of faculty. Is it? But you're working with the students that are first generation. All right.
I mean, I would put that in my first, second. Is that considered service? No, because it's not a commission. What is it?
Well,
Yes. Yes. No. There's two tracks. There's the research track, assistant associate, and there's the lecturer track. The research track, you will not get promoted unless you're doing research. The lecturer track, you will. Anybody can do research, and it's probably very good for your own equity, your own brand if you're doing research. That's a very, very simple answer. Yeah. That's a really good question.
about 20% important.
I think that service when it can be recognized, which is very, challenging, can be very good for being reappointed, for being long-term reappointed. For being promoted, I don't know if that's going to do much. Maybe, no, I should probably do something. The lecturer track, it will do. It probably is very helpful on the lecturer track, right? The challenge, though, is you do service and people don't always see. It's not like I just got published. Look at it. Here's another publication. Look, here's the rank. It's very hard to quantitatively say what the value of your service is. Okay, but you keep doing it. It's clear this is somebody that's continually of importance. So I think it's very good for reappointment and not bad for promotion. Right. Yeah. Are you on the lecturer track? Okay. Likely, you don't have a percentage when you get your reappointment letter or your merit review. You don't have a percentage. It's just like a line next to research. Okay. So the answer is no. Likely, there's a certain percentage. It might say 80% teaching and 20% service, and then there's a number that goes with it. That's likely. So you asked me a question. Is there a question? No, you're not. Right. So teaching, and mainly through the evaluations are going to be a primary mechanism. We did a forum in September to really talk through a lot of these issues. In terms of being reappointed, over a long period of time, so your value is being able to teach a large number of classes, or maybe your specialty is very valued. These are all kinds of things that go into the calculus for reappointment, as well as just do we have the enrollment. No, your research is just not going into that.
That's if you're in the lecture track. If
Right.
you're in the other track, then most likely a component of your evaluation is your research. And then it's a
Yeah. Yes. Right. So,
And I also want to come back to the idea of service. Your research is service outside of the institution because you are servicing your field. And that's a separate category to service within the institution. If you look on your FARS report, service within the institution, service without. So things you do, reviewing all your research and stuff you do, membership in societies and stuff, that's all service outside the institution. It means nothing within the institution except somebody says, oh look, that's really cool, he's the president of the blah blah, right? But it's not part of the calculation for your within service value.
question.
Not if you're doing something with somebody else within the school. It's probably a pretty grey area.
There's likely some identifiable service or service metrics. In other words, if you're writing an evaluation for a student, nobody, just do that out of your own. That's what we do. There's a lot of that's just what we do. And then there's, I had this committee, I'm on the curriculum, that are clear service elements. I think that's a similar distinction. Yeah, question? Okay, so there are 2 tracks. They set up a track at around 2000, whatever, 10, called the lecturer track. The idea was professorial, excuse me, that everybody or just about everybody was going to be on that track. The problem was a number of us never didn't want to go on that track. So at the end of the day, about 80% of term faculty, at least in the college, I can't speak for other departments, are on the professorial lecturer track. 20% are on the assistant associate track. Of the 20% that are on the assistant associate track, they are evaluated just like the tenure line faculty, except you don't have 6 years to make tenure. That's the only difference. Everything else is like a tenure line track faculty. On the professorial lecture track, folks will probably talk a little bit more about that, but it's more about teaching sum of service of going from a lecturer to senior lecturer to what's the third after senior lecturer? That's the 4th. Senior professorial and then Hearst lecturer. All right.
Research track, term faculty, do they have smaller teaching?
No,
No,
no.
no, you do that on top of your regular term teaching work and service level. Although that's not true. You can elect to have a component of your merit be research. You can elect not to have any research, and you can be 80-20 like everybody else and still do your research. But if you're doing consistent research that it gets valued and is visible, it's probably worthwhile to move some of that service or teaching component into a research area. If you're not doing that, then it's a real struggle, because if you can't meet that research commitment, then you're not going to get the merit points you need for it. You might as well leave it in teaching and service, which you know you have to do. But it's up to the individual. Basically, your chair asks you if you're in the research, if you're in the associate, assistant associate track.
You're hired into that.
No, well, I was asked if I wanted it, and I chose to take it.
I think for the most part we're hired into a certain track, and that's the expectation is based on the track.
Yeah, they're not hiring anybody essentially in the assistant research track anymore, unless you already had a tenured position at another institution, essentially.
Right, and then they're
we're
brought in
coming
as associate.
It's so similar to tenure track.
Correct.
Right.
Maybe just make it tenure.
No, that's not going to happen.
Well,
that's not happening.
that's well said, but yes, it doesn't
Not
happen.
happening. So to just oh, go ahead. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Fairly similar.
The only problem is most of the people who are on the assistant associate track have been here long term, and so the longer you've been here, the more likely your merits have accumulated to increase your salary. But nobody coming in will be under that track, and so you ultimately as coming in.
Compensation varies a fair bit by department.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if you're in the lecture,
Yes.
please. Well, you say it's not. It's 20% of the 20% of the college. I wouldn't say none.
External letters. The only thing is, if there's grants required, you're excused from the grant requirement, because it's very difficult to be competitive for grants if you're not tenure track.
But still, you know, in the humanities, you work in the
Mhm.
world, you can come back and do it. So it's difficult to
Yeah.
there is no guidance.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
it was so new they simply took tenure guidelines and adopted them for the assistant associate's term, which was challenging, but that's all they could do. It was the easiest path.
Question? Yeah, question? Hold on a second. Question? How do we fit in the whole? I think there's a number of universities that do, but we haven't really benchmarked to any great degree. But I think a number of universities do. I think we're more progressive. Certainly in the college under Dean Stowe, I don't know about throughout the university. I think we're considered more progressive, and we've also done a pretty good job of improving the integration of term faculty into things. But I would also say we have a lot further to go. Which kind of is a nice segue into, again, there's a report that's coming out about the service and governance. The other day we're suggesting, and there's details behind this, I want to emphasize, it's not just these sort of blanket statements. We have details behind this. Improved communication, transparency at department level regarding service and governance. We'd like to know what we can and can't do, what service options are available to us. Sounds like some people know pretty well, or at least feel comfortable with what they're doing, but certainly from the results from the survey, a lot of people were not. And then secondly, consider methods for rewarding people for valuable service. There were a lot of negative comments about this is great, but giving our teaching load and what we're paid for, not happening. So we're suggesting some programs that might improve that. So at the end of the day, we're saying here, come to a workshop in February. We're going to discuss this further, talk about sort of more findings from the report. We have not many more minutes, but well, we're supposed to have a panel discussion, but
I was just going to mention one thing. The participation here is not in CAS. We've already identified one or two individuals here. This was, of course, all driven from a CAS committee. It's very CAS-centric, but we tried very much so in the last year to reach out to all the other schools on campus, and we've shared all of this with individual term faculty who we know in all the other colleges on campus, and invited them to the task force, shared what we were doing, and shared all surveys and all results with them in the hope that this would disseminate a little further. The thought of a institution-wide term faculty collective is probably very scary for the administration.
So no, yeah. So in other words, rather than just having a college term faculty committee and SIS, do you have one in SIS?
Yeah, but it's fairly new, correct?
Perhaps it might make sense
I
to
think
have.
Robert Kelly started that about a year and a half ago. So we have, this is sort of spawned offspring in other places, which we hoped it would do, and we would hope to
Maybe integrate them at some level, or?
well, you have to be careful of that, but then it becomes an institution-wide collective of term faculty, which I said is very scary to the institution. So I think we have to be careful about that, but definitely sharing best practices, sharing information between schools is a very good thing. The schools are very different in the way they treat their term faculty, what they pay them. Getting some sort of equity is almost impossible because of the differences between colleges. But I think it's important to be sharing this information. We tried very hard to outreach from CAS to the other departments, and we would hope that the other departments would reach back in again when anything was done within those departments for term faculty. So that's my plea to other schools.
Any other questions, any other thoughts? Again, we started with what you wanted to hear. I don't know if we covered those. I'll go back. Yes.
I'll go back to what Robin here, which is
Yes. I think yes, and I think part of it is people coming with some ideas, because I certainly don't know. Right? I'd like to find out too. So I think that'd be great.
We actually have a list that was modified from SIS's list, who did a very good job of articulating all service done, possible service and service done. They gave it to us, we modified it, and we used it as part of the list for the survey. And so when the report comes out, we were hoping we would be able to provide a list of those sorts of things. But what's also important is what's appropriate for the level you're at. If you're a one-year contract, first-year person, the expectations that you're doing anything meaningful service-wise, right, is pretty small, because you shouldn't be concentrating on that. You should be getting your teaching up so that you get reemployed. Now, after 3 years or 5 years here, if you think you're getting a career out of this institution, then you have to think about what meaningful service should I be doing to make sure I can get a multi-year contract, reappointment, and possibly a future career here. And we want to articulate what those services are for people at individual levels and contracts and provide that information to people. That's ultimately what we're
And I think Dean Starr had made a comment in the last part that we expect after about 3 years you to be doing meaningful service with the department, maybe after 5 years you start doing meaningful service at the university or college university level. What those options are, though, it's still questionable. How do you get to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back that we clearly see that each department, each college has their own approach to many of these issues. It seems to me then that the target audience for this feedback is the chair, so that the chair has a clear set of recommendations, guidelines, information to provide to new faculty. I can't tell what economics wants to do, but I certainly want my chair to tell me what to do.
I know that Star pushed department heads to do this, to write bylaws and to write recommendations of service for student faculty. There's nothing recent from the department, but I know there is a push already from the dean's office to do this, and it's very good that it's there.
I mean, certainly if we got invited to a CDC meeting, that would be great. I don't know how we could do that, but we have pushed it to the dean, who's then maybe use some of the things that we've said to the department chair. Better if we could do it directly out of there, right?
But there's nothing wrong with the bottom-up approach, which is if you know what your rights are, then you go to your chair and you embarrass them by showing them how much you know about this, and then they will turn around and ask somebody else whether this is true or not, which is one of our goals as well, is to make sure that the term faculty have as much knowledge as possible about what they should and can do, because usually the weak link is the chair. I hope there's no, are there any chairs present here? Any weak links in the room? All right. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
No, don't mention that word. Don't mention that word. We are advocating for CAS term faculty. That's the role of the term faculty. It's a subcommittee of an advisory committee to the dean of CAS.
Okay. For which you're getting service.
Yeah.
Correct. Because it's a subcommittee, right? Make sure you get that in there.
Do you guys concern yourselves here about the adjunct?
We are strictly instructed to keep ourselves separate from that, because since the adjuncts unionized, they are no longer part of the general academic community here, because they have become, that comes from Scott Bass at the top. Once unionization occurred, there is no connection to adjuncts whatsoever with what we're doing at this level and above. That was a very strong message I got.
No.
No. And we probably never will.
Okay.
Never say no.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
Feel free to give us any feedback or certainly some better.
Thanks very much.